My name is Linda Martin, and on the day that was supposed to mark the beginning of my new life, I discovered exactly where I stood in my family. My wedding day was a humid July afternoon in the town's old little church. That sticky summer heat made my mother worry about frizzy hair in every picture. But the real tension in the air had nothing to do with the weather. I remember Michelle, my older sister, standing at the head of the table, her designer dress shimmering in the chandelier light, glass raised. She smiled that careful, camera-ready smile that always made me feel like I was being evaluated. To Linda and Gabriel, she began, her voice floating through the hole. May they always find happiness playing in the mud together. The laughter that followed wasn't cruel in volume, but it was sharp enough to cut me inside. I could feel my cheeks burning as hundreds of eyes turned to me. Some were amused, others curious, but none of them truly saw me. Gabriel, my husband, squeezed my hand under the table. His palm was warm, reassuring. He whispered, "Let them have their moment. We know who we are." I managed to force a smile for the cameras, but inside I was crumbling. My mother's voice hissed in my ear, "Smile, Linda. People are looking." And they always were. This was my family: Michelle, the golden child with a six-figure address in Chicago and a husband who treated investments like a blood sport; my parents, Christian and Luana, who had never really learned to hide their disappointment that I traded boardrooms for barns; and Gabriel, whose pants were still dusty from a morning check of the irrigation lines. My wedding dress was my grandmother's, hand-altered, the only thing that day that truly felt like mine. I raised my glass of water, too practical, I suppose, for Prosecco, to Michelle and forced a toast of my own. To family, I said, my voice clear. And to finding out who truly supports you when it matters. For a second, her smile wavered. It was the smallest of victories, but it was mine. I should have known, standing there with Gabriel's hand in mine, that this was only the beginning. That one day, the scales would tip, and when they did, the mud Michelle scoffed it would be worth more than she could ever imagine. 3 years passed since that wedding, and no family gathering happened without someone, subtly or not, reminding me of the life I had chosen. I remember the first summer reunion at Michelle's spacious new suburban home, with its impeccable lawn and a bubbling stone fountain in the entryway. She greeted me at the threshold with air kisses, then paused to examine the Pyrex dish I was carrying. "Oh, you brought food." Her tone managed to sound both gracious and horrified. "Is it from your garden?" I nodded, placing my salad, fresh greens, goat cheese, pecans, on the polished granite counter next to the catered spread. Joseph, her husband, drifted over, martini in hand, his perfectly tailored shirt gleaming against the white kitchen marble. "So, Linda, how's farm life?" he asked, as if it were an inside joke at my expense. "Still growing kale, or have you upgraded to, what, carrots?" I kept my voice steady. "Our farm is doing well. We're supplying 2 local restaurants now, and the co-op is growing." It never seemed to matter. Joseph's eyebrows rose, his smile feigned. "That's lovely," Michelle said, giving me a smile as fragile as spun sugar. "I always say it's good to have a hobby." I glanced across the room, where Gabriel was talking to Eloise, my younger sister, who had always tried to remain neutral in these family wars. Eloise gave me a sympathetic look as she poured iced tea into glasses. She knew how these evenings went. Our mother, Luana, came in next, beaming at Michelle and praising her incredible work ethic. Dad followed behind, already asking Joseph about investment opportunities and not even looking my way. Dinner was a never-ending reel of stories about Michelle's latest real estate flip, Joseph's supposedly impending promotion, and my parents' cruise. I answered questions about the farm, about whether I regretted leaving teaching, about why I never came back to the city, always with that soft insinuation of, "When will you grow up?" Even Eloise, sitting quietly with her drink, looked uncomfortable. When dessert arrived, imported chocolate mousse, artfully served by Michelle's caterers. She made a point of comparing her life to mine. You know, Linda, some of us are just born for big things. Others, well, you make the world greener, and that's important too, I guess. The table politely chuckled. I felt Gabriel's hand on my knee, steadying me. I just smiled and took another sip of my water, letting them think they had one. But I saw the cracks, small at first, but there, a tension behind Michelle's laughter, a quick flash of something like envy in Joseph's eyes when I spoke about the sunsets over our fields. They didn't see it, but I did. I was learning to stop wanting to belong and start wanting to be free. 6 months after that reunion, as the first snow dusted the fields around our farm, I stood at my kitchen sink, peeling potatoes for dinner, when my phone buzzed on the windowsill. It was a message from my mother, short and strangely formal. Family meeting at home Saturday, please come. Important. As long as I could remember, the words, family meeting, always signaled trouble, never celebration. Gabriel found me frowning at the phone. Everything all right? He asked, wiping his hands on a towel after stacking firewood outside. Mom wants us at their house this weekend, I replied. She says it's important. He raised an eyebrow. Do you think it's about Michelle and Joseph? Your dad's been calling a lot lately, hasn't he? I nodded. I had noticed my parents calling more than usual, but their updates felt rehearsed, their voices strained. That night, Eloise showed up for tea. She lived in the city now, teaching 3rd grade, and kept her own distance from family drama. We sat around the kitchen table while Gabriel silently set up seed trays in the mudroom. Did you get the message too? Eloise asked, blowing on her mug. Yes. Something's wrong. Michelle's been snappy, and Mom's been avoiding talking about their next trip. Have you noticed? Eloise looked away, thoughtful. I heard a rumor at school. Someone said Joseph's company lost a big client. She's been talking about budgeting, which is new for her. I looked at Gabriel, who was pretending not to listen, but his hands had stilled. Linda, we should prepare ourselves for something, he said softly. It sounds like they want us for more than moral support. Eloise pressed her lips together. They haven't asked me for money, she said quietly, but I think they might soon. As Saturday approached, I found myself watching the fields more than usual, counting the steady, ordinary blessings I had built away from the rest of them. Gabriel and I talked late into the night, lying in bed and listening to the wind whistle through the old windows. If they're in trouble, do we owe them anything? He asked gently. No, I said, though my voice trembled. But they'll ask anyway. Saturday arrived, gray and cold, the kind of weather that made every memory sharper. I baked a loaf of bread to bring, more out of habit than hope. On the way to my parents' house, Gabriel reached over and took my hand. Whatever they want, Linda, you don't owe them your life. You know that, right? I squeezed his fingers. I know. I just wish I didn't care so much. Their house looked smaller than I remembered. The porch light was already on, though it was only 3 p.m. Eloise's car was parked outside, and inside, my parents waited in the living room, their faces drawn. Michelle and Joseph sat side by side, both paler and thinner than I had ever seen them. No one stood to greet us. Thank you for coming, my father said, formal and tired. I could tell by the way he twisted his wedding ring that it would be a long afternoon. I sat down, the bread still warm in my lap, and braced myself for what was to come, knowing, deep down, that nothing would be the same after that day. The silence weighed heavy as we settled into the living room. My mother's eyes were red, and my father kept glancing at an envelope on the coffee table. Michelle twisted a napkin in her lap, her confidence drained. Joseph's jaw was set, and he barely looked at anyone. Let's just say, Michelle finally blurted out, her voice trembling, we need help. She looked at Joseph, who pressed his lips together and stared at the carpet. We made some investments, she continued, and things went wrong. Joseph's company was over-leveraged. We lost more than we could handle. My father cleared his throat, suddenly stern. It's not just about Michelle and Joseph. The house is mortgaged. Retirement accounts are nearly depleted. If we don't act, the bank will take everything. His voice cracked, and he looked away. Luana reached across the table to take my hand. We know it's a lot to ask, Linda, but you and Gabriel, your farm is the only thing in this family that's still worth anything. We want you to consider selling the farm. With the money, we could pay off the debts, save the house, and start over. She squeezed my fingers, desperate. It would mean the world to us. My breath hitched. I looked at Gabriel, whose jaw had tightened, and at Eloise, who stared at her clasped hands. Michelle's eyes welled with tears. Linda, you always talked about family, about doing what's right. Please, if you ever loved us, don't let everything fall apart. The old anger surged in my chest, hot and sharp. You want me to sell my home, my work, everything Gabriel and I have built. My father shifted in his chair. It's just land. You can always start over. We can all move forward together. Gabriel spoke, his voice even. You're asking us to sacrifice our future to pay for your mistakes. How is that fair? Joseph's cheeks flushed. It's not about blame, he retorted. It's about survival. Family helps family. I placed the bread on the coffee table. For years, you've made it clear that I was less than you. You mocked our choices, disregarded what we built. And now you expect us to save you. Michelle's composure broke. I'm sorry for everything, okay? I was proud, I was wrong. But please, Linda, this is bigger than old hurts. We're sinking. Luana started to cry softly. You don't have children yet, Linda, but imagine if you did. Imagine watching everything slip through your fingers and having to beg for help. The plea hit a deep place, but so did the exhaustion of a lifetime of being the last resort. I turned to Gabriel, searching his face. He nodded silently, letting me know I wasn't alone. I stood up. I can't give you an answer now. And honestly, I don't know if you'll like the answer when I do. Gabriel, shall we go home now? My voice didn't waver. I had stopped letting them see me falter. Gabriel stood immediately, taking the keys. The rest remained silent as we walked out. In the cold air, she took my hand. Whatever you decide, I'm with you, she whispered. And for the first time in years, I almost believed it. The drive home with Gabriel was silent, save for the hum of the tires on the frozen asphalt. I watched the snow begin to pile in drifts by the roadside, feeling both desolate and strangely light. Inside, Gabriel pulled me into a silent hug. Let's talk, he said. He led me through the mudroom and into the old barn, where he kept his makeshift office, just a worn desk, filing cabinets, and shelves filled with seed catalogs and dog-eared field notebooks. There's something I've wanted to show you for a long time, he said, unlocking a drawer and pulling out a stack of folders. He spread them on the desk, patent certificates, technical drawings, contracts. I know you always thought this was just our farm, Gabriel began, but Martin Green is more than that. I've been working on smart irrigation systems, developing new soil sensors, quietly, without fanfare. I started Martin Agritech as a research arm 3 years ago. We've tested, prototyped, sold everything through the farm. These, he tapped the patents, are all ours. The technologies are being used in more than 3 states. I stared at him, stunned. All this time. He nodded. We've had grants from the Department of Agriculture, contracts with seed companies, even a university partnership. I wanted to be sure it would work before telling anyone, even you. I didn't want to jinx it. A dozen memories flooded back. Gabriel tinkering in the shed until midnight, the sudden improvements to our equipment, the quiet satisfaction on his face when they balanced the books. So, why let my family treat us like we were nothing? Gabriel's eyes softened. I wanted to see what mattered to them, and to you. I needed to know if we were building something real or just trying to prove our worth to people who would never see us clearly. He hesitated, then added, I'm sorry you felt alone. I thought I was protecting us. Maybe I was wrong. A strange mix of pride and hurt tangled within me. I wish you had told me. But I understand, Gabriel, I do. I just need to know what comes next. He smiled, a little sheepishly. What comes next is this: we're not selling. Martin Green isn't just land, it's everything we've worked for. They'll be back, Linda, they'll push. But now you know where you stand. A slow certainty settled into my bones, like a warmth spreading from my core. Let them come, I said, and I meant it. That night, I found myself on the porch, wrapped in a quilt, watching the snow fall in silent mounds across the field. The farm lights glowed steadily, and inside, the folders were stacked, proof that I was no longer anyone's last resort. They arrived that Sunday afternoon in a procession of sleek cars, their polished surfaces gleaming against the weathered wood of the farmhouse. From the kitchen window, I watched my parents, Michelle, Joseph, and little Anne step onto our porch, bundled in city coats that looked out of place among the fields. Inside, the atmosphere was tense and heavy. Joseph wasted no time, slapping a leather briefcase onto the coffee table. We brought the sale papers. The buyer is ready. You just need to sign, Linda. Michelle stood beside him, her usual confidence broken by desperation. Please, Linda, we need this. Don't make us beg. Gabriel, calmly, stepped forward, placing a stack of his own folders next to theirs. He opened one to reveal patents, contracts, and letters from government agencies. Before anyone signs anything, know exactly what you're selling. Joseph squinted at the documents. What is all this? This, Gabriel said, tapping the top patent, is Martin Agritech. The technology developed right here on our farm over the last 3 years. We've patented irrigation systems, soil sensors, and more. This land isn't just land, it's a research hub worth millions. The room fell silent. Michelle's face paled, and my father looked down, speechless. Gabriel continued, sliding out contracts and client lists. You're proposing to sell to someone who recently tried to buy our technology license. We said no. This farm and this business are not for sale. Joseph's face drained of color. You led us to believe you were struggling. Why? Gabriel met his gaze steadily. To see who we truly are when we thought we had nothing left. Michelle started to cry softly. Linda, I'm sorry. I never meant to. My mother's voice cut in. We're family. Doesn't that count for anything? I stood up, voice firm. Family means nothing when it asks you to sacrifice everything for their mistakes. Joseph hissed, you'll regret this. You'll be alone, clinging to your dirt. Gabriel shook his head. We've built a future. Something real. My father said nothing. Eloise stepped forward, stopping beside me, in silent solidarity. If this is family, then I choose where I belong. They left without another word. The silence that followed felt like freedom, like the first breath after a long-held struggle. After they left, the house felt strangely lighter, almost as if the walls themselves had been freed from years of tension and judgment. Gabriel and I sat together on the porch, wrapped in thick blankets against the crisp evening air. The snow was falling softly now, blanketing the fields that had become our refuge and the foundation of everything we had built. Around us, stillness settled, deep and complete, as if the world was finally exhaling. Soon after, Eloise joined us, her presence a steady comfort. She didn't say much, but when she did, her words carried the weight of truth. Family isn't just the people you're born to. It's those who stand by you when it matters. For the first time, I felt free, not bound by expectations or the heavy burden of disappointment. My phone vibrated with an email from the Department of Agriculture, congratulating us on a $2.7 million grant to advance our drought-resistant crop research. This was no longer just about survival, it was a future filled with innovation and hope, a future we had fought to create on our own terms. I thought of Michelle, of the years of distance and silence between us. I felt no bitterness, just a quiet understanding. Healing wasn't about revenge, it was about peace, about choosing boundaries, and embracing the life I was meant to live. "This is home," I said to Gabriel softly, my eyes following the fading golden light over the fields. "Not because of the land itself, but because of what we've built together." He smiled, squeezing my hand with that gentle confidence I had fallen in love with years ago. "One step at a time, Linda. We're just getting started." As the sky bled into shades of pink and orange, I took a deep breath, knowing that, whatever challenges lay ahead, I was exactly where I was meant to be, rooted, grounded, and finally, free. Thank you for listening to Linda's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share to support us in bringing more emotional stories, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new releases. See you in the next video.